In this short video, I will try to introduce why companies make break-even calculations. Companies often need to calculate the minimum possible level of sales volume or turnover required to ensure a given activity is profitable. The term refers to the connection of break-even sales volume and break-even turnover. This is the reason why the company needs to do this is because, of course, they need to know how much do they sell in order to reach the required turnover or reach the required sales volume. And saying we identify demands regarding total contribution margin after a change in parameter. This means the figure comprises the total contribution margin before change in parameter plus any extra advertising cost and or fixed cost. This means that, of course, when a company needs to have the turnover, then they subtract the variable cost. The contribution margin, which is a result of the turnover minus the variable cost, actually tells us, okay, how much in total do we need in order to cover our cost. Calculating contribution margin per unit sold after a change in parameter. The figure comprises the sales price minimum the variable unit cost after a change in parameter. If the price changes, the calculating break-even sales volume. This sales volume comprises the demand on total contribution margin according to point 1 divided by the contribution margin per unit sold according to point 2. But let's be specific. Let's say we have an example of a company that sells cameras for the price of 4,000. Then we suggest that they might actually want to reduce their prices with 5%. And then we need to know, okay, we need to find out the sales volume required in the year ahead to ensure that the price reduction will actually be a success for the company and will not be a failure. So we say the sales price of 4,000 and we might subtract 5%. Then we have the sales price of 3,800. Then we subtract the variable unit cost of 3,000 per product. This means we have a contribution margin per camera at 800. Then we made the break-even sales volume calculation, and we see that, okay, we have the calculation saying demand on total contribution margin 400,000. Then we say new contribution margin per camera, which is 800, which we saw before. If we take the 3,800 and subtract the variable unit cost of 3,000, that's 800. This means that taking the demand on total contribution margin divided by new contribution margin per camera, we see that the company needs to sell 500 cameras in order to ensure a positive results after the new price reduction. The idea, instead of actually reducing the price, the company can actually do a different thing. They can actually, instead of lowering the price of the product on the camera, they can actually choose to use money on advertisement, because we all know that advertisement can actually influence the buyer, the consumer, to actually buy the product. But then we should say, okay, we have the contribution margin without advertisement, and then we add the advertisement cost of 40,000, then we have a total of 40,000. Then we can say that we made the break-even sales volume, where we now, instead of before having 400,000 divided by 800, now we have 440,000 divided by 800, and then this gives the results of 440 cameras. This would be under the assumption that the company didn't reduce the price, they would keep the same price as before. Therefore, we would order to add the advertisement cost in order to actually, how much would we actually need to pay in order to pay for the contribution margin plus the advertisement cost. The next one is the break-even turnover. In some circumstances, it's a good idea to calculate the break-even point in terms of cash turnover. This will be illustrated by another example involving the photo shop. Here we have, let's say the company has also calculated what is known as the contribution ratio for its photographic accessories, reflecting the contribution margin in percentage of the turnover. Then we have, if we say that the contribution ratio equals to contribution margin multiplied by 100 divided by turnover, we say contribution ratio 200,000 multiplied by 100 divided by 800, which means 25%. A contribution ratio of 25% means that each time the company sells one of its accessory for, let's say, 100 kroner, the contribution margin achieved is 25 kroner. In order to calculate the break-even turnover, we say 280,000 multiplied by 100 divided by 25. Then we see that in order to make sure that that we reach the break-even turnover, we actually need to have a turnover for 1,120,000.